here to discuss all things NRL and anything sports related. Please give a warm Aussie g'day to the footy fanatic and America's own Corey Jackson in Outside the Sheds.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Outside the Sheds. Shedheads, I have returned. I have returned intact. I have returned motivated. I don't know how to describe it. I would say over the last week, I've probably had 2 days where I didn't sleep at all. So that's a little strange. I had a great night's sleep last night. I barely caught back up with anybody since I returned back stateside. But all in all, a very, very incredible and successful trip down under. We're going to go into it in a little bit more detail. I'm excited to be back with you guys, almost with a new sense and purpose and energy. I think it's probably being around the game and being in country as the NRL and AFL seasons are going on and being around that type of excitement. I think all of that just encompasses my feeling and my emotion right now. And then, besides what I'm going to go into about how great the trip turned out and the people I got to spend time with and all of that, and Mrs. Shedadamus treated me well, so you can't ever say that's a bad thing when the missus treats you like a king and royalty, which she normally does. Come on, she's not Mrs. Shedadamus for no reason. She's a special person because she's going to have to be around me. But anyway, let's go into my favorite round 8, Anzac round. A round that, again, we're going to talk about this coming up, but a round to me that is my favorite round of the season for all the pageantry and everything that goes with it. And I just think you see a lot of players step up during that round because I think it's all put into perspective with the ceremonies that happen before the matches, and I think it just helps ground everyone and gets them focused to do a game. And no matter how much we love this and how much it means to so many people, the game of NRL and rugby league, it just really sends a purpose that you're not, at Gallipoli, or you're not in Vietnam, or you're not in Afghanistan or in Iraq. It just really grounds you to let you know you're being able to play a kid sport and to really have fun with it while you can. So anyway, let's go into this. To kick off the round, that's how I knew that we were going to be in for some festivities. Titans 27, Warriors 24. AJ Brimson leads the Titans to their first victory of the season, but also starts putting a little bit of creeping doubt into the Warriors' mind because that's 2 losses in a row for the Waz. And I had them picked high up in the rankings during the preseason when we were all doing our picks, and I think most people did. And the funny thing is, I still think the Waz can get back up there and get back to where most people feel they should be. But these are 2 victories they should have had, and not taking anything away from the teams that they lost to, because I know the NRL shows us week in and week out that anybody can win it every week. But, the Titans hadn't won all season. And even though they had an incredible match against Manly, they fell just a tad bit short on. I don't know if anyone thought they were going to go into Mount Smart and play the way that they did. AJ Brimson played out of his mind. I think this also shows there's no way that AJ can't be in the number 1 or number 6 jersey going forward. I know that Jaden Campbell is projected to be the future of the team. He's got a lot invested with the team, and he's a nice guy, which we'll talk about a little bit more because of our meeting. But I really think that AJ is just special, and I know he loves the fullback position, but I think he's just as effective in the number 6 as well. So great, and congratulations to the Titans, to everybody surrounding the Titans who we know and care for dearly. But a great first victory, and it really makes the Warriors have to reboot and figure out where they really want to be going forward. Roosters 60, Dragons 18, Sammy Walker, Hollywood back in the building, playing probably his best match for the season as well. And I think it's just kind of crazy how when Hollywood's firing, when Sam's firing, he had a little beard going on. he had that it factor just from the start, from the moment you saw him in the sheds, and it just translated out onto the field. He looked well, but I think the thing that gets lost in all of this is just how he guides that squad. And when he plays the way that he did against the Dragons, it lets Luke Keary kind of sit back and just assess. And I think Luke plays really well off the cuff, and I think that's why they're a good tandem. The problem is just having them both healthy on the field at the same time. But a really impressive victory. I think the moment everybody starts doubting the Roosters, the Chookies, what they possibly can be, what they possibly will be, as soon as that happens, they step up. And this is a big season for the Chooks, because with all of the departures and the departures that we just heard about recently, which we're going to go over in the 40-20, we really see that this is now the time that they better put it all together and get that premiership, because next season there's a lot of unknown and uncertainty with the club. Storm 54, Rabbitohs 20. What can you say? Xavier Coates, Cameron Munster put on a display, a show. I think we finally got to see the Cam Munster coming out of injury, kind of getting back to his old larrikin ways, getting back to feeling himself, being a little bit more comfortable. And this is scary. Some people did not have the Storm picked in the top 8, and they're top of the table battling with Cronulla right now. And the other thing that's really scary is if you're a Cockroach/Blues supporter, the last thing you want to see is Cameron Munster rounding into form, getting ready to go into Origin. And the crazy thing about it is he still has another 3 weeks to hone his game, to get more healthy, and to be prepared for the Origin series. So for the rest of the league in the NRL, I think this is some worrying signs that Cameron Munster's coming around. But I think for State of Origin time, this also shows both sides that this guy is coming and that he's ready to play some of his best footy of the season. Sea Eagles 32, Eels 18. I will tell you, I was with one of, how should I say this nicely, Parramatta's greatest supporters, a man that makes his vehicle that he drives daily, almost daily, license plates, pimped out, seatbelt protectors over your shoulder, representing the blue and gold. Yes, Dom, I'm talking about you. You were proud that the club showed heart and defense, and they did. I think that we know this. We know that Parramatta had to show something after that dreadful performance against the Finns up in Darwin, even though Darwin is Southeast Asia, and you can't breathe there even if you want to, but that's something else. But it was a good showing for Parramatta, even though they did not get the victory. Manly's just too much for them right now. And the way the DCE and the Trbojevic brothers, Ruben Garrick, the way he's playing, it was too much of a call for Parramatta to get that victory. Now, coming off of this, now we find out that the man, King Gutho, is going to be out 3 to 4 weeks with a knee procedure. So we're not going to see him. I know the bye round's coming up for Parramatta, but another 3 games possibly that we will not see him on the field. And with this guy being the heart and soul of Parramatta, you really worry for Brad Arthur, and you really worry about how the season's going to end up. There is rumblings that Mitchell Moses may be coming back a little bit early from his foot ailment, from his foot injury. But Parramatta's backs are against the wall right now, and I really do feel that they are fighting to save Brad Arthur's job. Wayne Bennett is creeping around a couple different clubs right now, and when Clint Eastwood's name is mentioned, you know there's probably a little smoke and fire going along with that. But nice, hard effort by the Eels, but again, Manly just too strong. Broncos 34, Tigers 10. The crazy thing, the funny, whatever you want to say, the thing about this match that I think really kind of showed me star power is the way that Reece Walsh was treated on the road at Campbelltown. Okay, one of the sacred places for the West Tigers, and Reece Walsh was almost bowed to. But the cool thing about Reece Walsh And talking to a guy that's in the know, who we'll be talking about very, very shortly, is that Reese Walsh, not even being his home ground, stayed after the demolishing of the Tigers on their own field and signed autographs and took pictures for 30 minutes after the match finished. That is somebody who gets it. Not a guy that runs quickly to the tunnel or takes a Powerade, Gatorade, whatever the heck he's drinking. Scotch and soda. All right, maybe not scotch and soda. But he just sits back there and talks to a few blokes and then goes to the sheds. No, Reese Walsh loves that energy. He gets around the fans. I think he understands these people are the reason that he has the life that he has, the status that he has, and the ability to make the money that he does. So it's really cool to see. I wish he maybe played for a different club. Now, hey, not playing favorites right there. I think Reese Walsh is exactly where he should be, and I think Kevy is going to help lead him to some really, really promised lands in the future. But again, 34-10, Broncos just dismantling the Tigers, and besides Appy not getting a try that he deserved to get, not a great showing for the Tigers. Panthers 26, Cowboys 20, probably maybe the most insane game of the round. The Panthers getting off to that big lead, the Pink Panthers marching around, and the Cows hadn't lost in Darwin yet this season, hadn't lost at home, and they almost came back and snatched a game that they really were never in by a huge comeback. And I think that the Penrith Panthers were quite happy to hear that final whistle because I think another 5 minutes and the Cows probably catch them. So good victory. Anytime you go up to North Queensland or into Brisbane, where it's a little bit more humid for a Sydney club, to get the victory and the chocolates, I think tells you everything. But Penrith, I think, is just going. I think they're just going to do it hard this season. And I'm not saying they can't win their fourth championship in a row, their fourth premiership, but I think it's just going to be maybe one of the toughest championship defenses that we're going to see if they can pull this off. Knights 18, Dolphins 14. Debutant Armstrong, this guy filling in for Kalen Ponga, fired out of a gun to start the match, gets the opening try off an assist by Jackson Hastings, and the rest is history, Shedheads. I'm telling you, this is why gambling, we have fun with gambling here on Outside the Sheds, but this is why, to me, being a professional gambler or somebody that likes to get with the punters and place their weekly bets is insane for me, because you just can't gauge people's hearts, not guys' hearts, but athletes' hearts, men's or women's, anybody. You can't gauge hearts, and you can't put a line on a heart, because people can will themselves to do things that no one expects them to do. And most people on paper did not see the Knights coming in there and getting that victory. I'd love to say that I made the pick, but as you know, I didn't do a podcast last week, so I can't take that. But the Knights really, really, really showed some heart, showed some gumption. They fought, and they got the victory. And you never know now. This could be the start, because don't forget, they got on a big run last year, won 10 in a row. So they have it in them. I really am surprised a little bit that the Hastings Gamble combination is back. I wouldn't have ever messed with it personally myself. I know that was a big pickup they did, in the offseason, getting the half out of Penrith. But I'm very, very skeptical about messing with your spine, especially when they're firing. And I think unsettling Jackson Hastings to start the season and just, playing around with a lot of things really unsettled the Knights player. So it's going to be interesting to see. They have something to prove right now, that they're just not at Kalen Ponga's side and that they can do a lot more. So going to be interesting going forward, but a great victory for the Newcastle boys. Sharks 40, Raiders 0. With the absence of Braden Trindle not seeming to affect the Sharks at all, up Cronulla was all we could say in this match, because Cronulla really look like the form team of the competition. I know a lot of people will say that they haven't played anybody, and that's what's going to be fun because 3 of the next 4 weeks, they are going to be playing top-tier clubs, and we're going to really see what the Sharkies have and if they are the real deal or not. Because if they get through this murderer's row that they've got coming up 3 of the next 4 weeks, we're going to know where they stand and how they're going to be. But it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think any of us really know. But I think if they play this brand of football, it'd be hard to bet against them. It really would. So, Shedheads, as you know, the Shedadamus was down under on a great trip. And I want to kind of go over it a little bit because a lot of things happened. A lot of cool things. A lot of things that may affect the show going forward in the near future. But it was Anzac round. And it was my first time being in country for Anzac round. And I got to experience what I had only seen on television. And I have told you guys on previous episodes how sometimes I've sit back and watched some of the opening ceremonies for Anzac round, and it brings me to tears. It's a lot of emotion. I think they do it maybe better than I've seen any other professional league pay remembrance to a holiday like that. I know over in America here, they do the salute to service round, and sometimes I get that feeling it's just to sell a bunch of camo garb for some of the clubs. Now, it's good-looking stuff. Let me not take away from the NFL, but it almost feels to me like a money grab. And there's not any type of money grab about the Anzac Day performance. I'm saying, besides a few clubs having some incredible jerseys for the round, it's just not a money grab. It's just total remembrance. And I think that's why it hits hard and hits so well at home with me, is that it is done out of just respect and honor. And I think those two words nowadays just go by the wayside way too much. And I think we take it for granted as people, the lives that we're able to lead and to live because of other sacrifices. And so it was cool being in country for that. And I'm going to go over our trip a little bit. Mrs. Shedda puts me on a jet and we fly to the other side of the world, which we know. And we landed in Tasmania to start off this beautiful trip. Now, a little bit of insight. Me and Mrs. Shedadamus are inaugural members for the Tasmania Devils. Yes, that's right. We are inaugural members. Matter of fact, we returned back home, and our inaugural member envelopes actually arrived while we were gone. So that's got some investment. I always tell people Tasmania reminds me of New Zealand with poisonous animals like you find in Australia. Now, living in the state that I live in, I know about poisonous animals. But that's how I would compare it. Very warm people. Very friendly people. And I enjoy going to Tasmania a lot. It is, you guys know, the Shedadamus loves himself some New Zealand. And not just because of Mata Mata and the Lord of the Rings. It just, to me, is a place that just, I don't know, it just makes me feel peaceful all the way through, and that doesn't happen often. But we landed, we got to go up and stay maybe at our favorite place to stay away from the Shedadamus Castle here, and got to stay at our place run by Gerard, a.k.a. Spook, a good friend of ours. A listener to Outside the Shed. So if you're listening to Spook, hello in Tasmania. But we got to go there and to kind of just recharge to start our trip and to kind of lay things out and to kind of rest up to get everything started. But, you know, it's really cool to make that happen. And I really enjoyed it. And that's what we do. But before we go farther into this, I want to just kind of go over Anzac round with you, and then we're going to delve into the trip a little bit. I got ahead of myself. I got to do something that I didn't know would I ever do because we're never over there. And Mr. Shedadamus and I were actually in Darwin, and we had flown back and landed in Sydney early in the morning, 6:30ish. I think it was 6:30. But we had to take the train back up to our destination up in Gosford. And we go down to the train track from the, which is really, really cool because the train is hooked right onto the airport in Sydney. So we get our baggage, get our gear, we go right down to the airport, to the train station. And already before 7 o'clock, there are veterans in full suits, and not military suits, but suits, already with their brethren, already with their brothers, getting ready to go to opening daily morning services for Anzac Day. And it just really caught me off guard, just seeing people put together that much and ready to go through their entire day in remembrance for this. And seeing a train car go by with good friends and guys just sitting together and that bond that I think that you get, doing what you do when you're in the military, forming a brotherhood, really just, it sticks in my mind really, really strong. But it was really, really cool to see. So anyway, we get on the train, we take it back up to Gosford, and I still haven't slept yet, by the way, Shedheads, but we get in there. Dom picks us up from Gosford. We roll back to the house. I jump in the shower. Mrs. Shedadamus claps. Out she goes. She has to get some rest. You can't look that beautiful without getting rest, Shedheads. That's all I can say. Anyway, I get in the shower, run back out, throw on an Anzac commemorative jersey for a certain club, which we won't mention here because we don't play favorites. And out the door I go with Dom. His two children, the great Tuscany and Savio, were marching in a parade going to Wyoming. So we got to wave at them and honor them for a little bit. And then we went right over to a park, and I got to be in person for my first Anzac Day ceremony. And it was really, really cool. That's all I can say. I felt humbled to be there. I was kind of in awe being there, and I just kind of took it all in and just really, really enjoyed that. Then when that finished, I got to do the other great part of Anzac Day. I got to go spend time with my mates. So Dom and the Gov and myself went over to the Leagues Club in Gosford, and we got to pound a few pints. Thank you, Dom, for showing me Summersby. And we got to watch the first half of the Warriors and the Titans game on the big screen, and just got to talk to some guys, talk to a nice guy that was a Dragon supporter, and he gave me some breakdowns of players that weren't going to play and that I didn't even know yet. So we did that till right before, probably about 2:30, and then we jumped in the car, got back to the house, and we pretty much spent the rest of the day around family and friends. Susie, Jim, Peter, love you guys. You guys got to come over, and we just all hung out for the day, and we watched the Chooks and the Dragons, and then we finished it off with the Melbourne game. So I couldn't have thought of a better day, and it beyond lived up to my expectation. I really enjoyed it. Just spending time, and I think that's what Anzac Day is. It's about spending time with your family, with your friends, with the people you love, and always remembering the people that allowed you to have those moments. So there you go. That was my Anzac Day experience. And instead of just going over some of the matches, I kind of wanted to let you know my feelings of Anzac Day and what I got to experience on this trip, my first time being there. So let's go into the trip a little bit more. I kind of was already telling you that we landed in Tasmania, hung out, got to the house, Spooks at home, got ourselves settled in. But that was really, really cool. But then we got to go and met some new friends also. Dallas and his wife, Allison. Mrs. Shedadamus, it was her birthday, so we did a little touring around Tasmania on a tandem, side-by-side bicycle contraption that Dallas owns. So that was cool doing that. But then your Shedadamus got to go to the Ulverston Robins, and well, I just want to say this. Doreen took care of me at the Ulverston Robins. She is the caretaker of the club, and I got some gear from the club, so that was really cool. If you don't know, the Ulverston Robins, they are a AFL junior side. They play against Penguin and clubs around there, Burnie. So that was really cool. Enjoyed that. Had a great time. Kind of got to finish our trip to Tasmania, and I think we were there about 9 days. With having a great meal that Spook put on, where he introduced us to some of his neighbors and friends, and Had a great time with that. So we got on the plane then, flew over to Sydney. Again, you know my boys there, Dom, Sonia, the kids. Spent time there. Angelo and Millie, love you guys dearly. You guys are big shed heads too. Love you. Got to have a chance to give you a signed book. So we got to spend some time and really just got to unwind, seeing people that you really, really care about and love, and just got to take that in. But then we got shot out of a cannon because I remember telling you guys when I was in Vegas that I got to hang out with Matty Johns and Gordy. Well, because of that relationship that I formed, Gordon got Mrs. Shedadamus and I tickets for the Matty Johns show. So we got there, ate a lot of free pizza that they had before. I think I might have had a beer, a VB, by the way, it was a VB. Then we got on the show. Saw Fletch and Heidi. Fletch remembered me from Vegas. And then between a commercial break, Gordon sees me, and Matty comes over, and he asked Mrs. Shedadamus and I to go on to a segment of the show, which was unexpected. Thank gosh that I decided to try to look my best while I was on the show. And we got to talk about my book a little bit, and I think it was just an honor being on the show. And, Matty, Fletch, hope you had a great time in Bali, Fletch. The guys just really are friendly. I'm just saying, I love Gordy. We actually left the Fox News studio. Gordy got me a ball. I don't know if he was supposed to, but he got me a ball signed by the guys. And we went to a bar not too far away from where we were standing, the Crow's Nest. And we were just going to hang out and have a beer. And then a beer with Gordy and Mrs. Shedadamus turned into about, 6 rounds later. And we were flying up to Gold Coast the next day, so that made it a little difficult. But Mrs. Shedadamus and I were hiring a kite, not on narcotics, but just high from the experience. And we walked back to our hotel about a mile away and had a great talk, and the streets were empty, so it was awesome. But then we got to experience something really cool because we flew up to the Gold Coast. Again, another beautiful relationship was formed when we were in Vegas with the Frizzels. Rebecca and Brett had Mrs. Shedadamus and I come out to be guests for the Gold Coast Titans, as you can guess. But I think we were more than guests because we were treated like royalty when we were there. I can't really thank the Frizzels enough. Rebecca and Brett are just two special people, and you just sit there and talk to them, and it feels like you've known them for years. They're genuine. They're warm. They're caring. They only wanted Mrs. Shedadamus and I to just have the greatest experience that we possibly could have. We got taken to the match after we had lunch together. We went to the match and got to sit up in the special, luxury box or box, whatever you want to say. And even up there, you're treated like kings. They had all types of food and got a little bullet bourbon in me, which is always a good start for the day or start for a match. And then, the Titans went out there and fought. They fought their you-know-what's off. They gave it all they possibly could. But one bad mistake probably cost them that match. And if you watch the match, you know which one I'm talking about. But you just can't make mistakes like that, especially when you're going through the streak that they were going through with losses at this current time. You just can't make those type of mistakes and win a match. You just can't. And they unfortunately got to experience that. So a lot of people were really down, but man, everybody in the box. Dennis, I'm going to tell you something. My friend who I met in the box up there, we won't drop a lot of names, but he had a little bit to do with the Brisbane Broncos back in the day as well, too. Just a great guy. Just a great guy. I enjoyed spending time with him and talking to him, and he called me Mr. International when I met him. So the entire experience up there, even though I wanted to be the guy that brought the first victory to Gold Coast, didn't happen. But I thought we were leaving after that point. And then Rebecca and Brett took us down to the sheds. And, in the sheds, I got to talk to Desi for a little bit and Kieran Foran. Big Tino, as he's rehabbing, was beyond friendly. And the crazy thing I learned from talking to a lot of these guys is how much they enjoy American sport as well. Tino's a big basketball fan. Jaden Campbell, I think if Mrs. Shedadamus could have thrown Jaden in her purse and brought him home, she would have. They just sat and talked forever. And then I looked down, and Mrs. Shedadamus had to point out that Jaden has Kobe and Michael tattooed on his forearm. So I got a good picture with Mrs. Shedadamus and Jaden showing his Michael Jordan, because Mrs. Shedadamus' famous professional athlete of all time is Michael Jordan. So as you can guess, Jaden is probably her favorite player in the league right now. But talked to AJ Brimson. He was still kind of down a little bit, but beyond friendly and engaging, talking to me after the loss. And I know these guys were really, really feeling it. But I think that's the thing that you have to understand. These guys are playing a game where they're not making $567 million on a 10-year contract. They're playing a game they love, and they're putting their bodies on the line. And in American standards, they're making cents on the dollar compared to a lot of professional athletes over here. But they put their bodies out there, and I think a lot of it is pride. So, but spend a lot of time with those guys. I will tell you one of my highlights that I saw, because in the tunnels we were going in, I looked to my right, and there is the man, the myth, the legend, the Prince of Brookvale, the venomous snake. Brett Stewart was standing there. And the Frizzels were ready to go into the locker room, and I couldn't leave. I had to get my picture with the venomous snake. That 2011 Manly club is one of my favorite clubs of all time. They were special. That was DC's rookie year, but that killer was there, and the venomous snake, and the Stewart brothers. It was just awesome. So, Brett Stewart was beyond friendly, and it was really, really cool to meet him. Didn't get to talk long, but an incredible trip to Gold Coast. I one of the highlights of all my trips to Australia of things to do that I got to experience. And again, this was all due to the Frizzels and their openness and just being intrigued about an American who knows the game and loves the game. So I want to thank Rebecca and Brett from the bottom of my heart, me and Mr. Shedadamus, for the experience that you guys gave us. And can't wait to see you guys in Vegas next year, and maybe even talk before then. But so that was our trip to Gold Coast and the Matty John show. It was I can't even really say how great everything was on this trip, and it's really refueled me as a fan of the game. It's refueled me in my thought process of how I'm going to break things down and try to bring a better show to you guys. Because without the Shedheads and without my passion, there's nothing to this podcast. So again, thank you again for everybody that provided such a great trip, and I want to say I love Mrs. Shedadamus, and thank you for just opening the country of Australia to me, because it's become a part of my life. So let's go into 40-20. Enough of the Shedadamus going off on his world rockstar tour. We got to talk about the matters at hand, the stories that are going on in the game, and as you can guess, we're getting to the chunk of the season where there's got to be major decisions made, and major decisions will be made. And one of those major decisions just went down a day ago. After that 54-20 drubbing by the Storm, the Rabbitohs did the thing that a lot of people thought was coming a week or two before that. They have called time on Jason Demetriou being the head coach for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Now, I will tell you, he made some questionable decisions about players, about, things that he did with the club. But I felt for Jason Demetriou because I really think that the club kind of left him out there to twist a little bit. I don't think it was anything that South Sydney expected, because let's not forget, South Sydney moved him on. They moved him on. Moved Wayne Bennett on to get to Jason Demetriou. And the crazy thing about this entire story is now South Sydney is thinking that they want to backflip and bring old Clint Eastwood back to the club. I don't understand. They probably just missed a 3-year window of possibly having another premiership by moving on from Wayne Bennett and then going in a different direction, especially if they're going to steer the boat right back to Wayne Bennett. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I think a lot of people will probably tell you that's why South Sydney is where South Sydney is right now, because I think a lot of the direction is being called into question. Player development, leadership. I think there's fighting upstairs between the old gladiator himself, Russell Crowe, and other members of the ownership group. I just think there's a lot of dysfunction. And if you have dysfunction in that upper management, no matter how hard you try, it goes, water runs downhill. And I think that's what we're seeing on the field. I think that's what we're seeing with the players. The whole Lachlan Ilias situation. Now they're saying Lachlan Ilias now can go out and try to find another club because they're about ready to bring in St. Helens halfback. And the crazy thing about that, too, is that this halfback for St. Helens would not agree to come to South Sydney if he didn't know who the coach was going to be in place. So that South Sydney already behind the scenes, no matter if they say otherwise, has come to a decision on who their coach going forward is going to be. Because that coach has probably been asked if they want this halfback. I'm not saying any names yet because it has not been finalized. The ink is not dried. But it looks like this is a done deal. So even though they're saying one thing, it looks like something else is happening behind the scenes. And we know in professional sports, that's what happens. We don't ever know, being the layman, unless you've got a plant inside the organization or club, what's really actually transpiring and going on. But with that being said, South Sydney is acting like they don't know what's going on. They don't know their direction. The only thing we know is that Ben Hornby is going to step in as the interim coach going forward. And we'll have to see, because guess what? Boom! Right off the chute, they open up the round 9 with a new interim coach. I don't know. Again, South Sydney's timing is so off. I don't know what you can say about it, except I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it would probably shock me if we did not see old Clint Eastwood back. Now, I know Parramatta might have something to say about this going forward, but right now it looks like they're leaning towards Wayne Bennett's return back on a white horse back to South Sydney. Now, I told you start finding a lot about futures of clubs and players about this point in the season. And in a shocking development to me, I didn't see this coming, but Luke Keary has announced that his career will come to an end at the end of this season. That 2024 will be his last season with the Chooks, with the Sydney Roosters. And I hope this isn't because of head knocks and injuries, and that Luke Keary is not experiencing any effects from his head injuries. But I think it's just really, I think it's caught a lot of people off guard that he is stepping away at the end of the season. First off, he's leaving $800,000 on the table because he still had 1 year left on his contract. But again, this is a very, 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 very physical game. And I think after a while, you have to think about your future. I think after a while, you have to think about your children, your family, what's best for them, what's best for you. And I think it's kind of crazy when you look at a guy like Luke Keary who, wears his emotion on his sleeve, plays that way, plays, with no fear going, down on the field. And then you look at a guy like DCE, Daly Cherry Evans, who barely ever gets a knock, who's involved in tackles, but his body is probably 7 to 8 years younger than Luke Keary's because he just hasn't had the injuries. And I think that's what's so strange is how some guys get on that injury train and some guys just are like Teflon. Nothing sticks to them. They don't get hurt. Let's be honest. They're all carrying some type of a knock, but no head injuries, no bicep ruptures, no ACL tears, no MCL tears. Knock on wood, because I don't want to, hex anybody. But it is strange. It is a little sad to see Luke Keary calling an end to his career. But I think it puts even more pressure on the Roosters to get him his 4th premiership this year, to let him ride out a winner for the club. Now, again, injuries, retirements, all of this goes hand in hand. And we've got a big injury news report, and that is that Nathan Cleary is going to be rested this week for the Penrith Panthers. They're saying that they want to take it easy on that hamstring. They don't want to have it get re-injured, and they don't want to load him up too much. So what better way to do that than to rest him against South Sydney to open round 9? And yeah, they're just going to rest Nathan. And I think it's not a bad idea, but I think it also might tell us that maybe that injury to Nathan's hamstring was a little bit more serious than was ever let on. And that maybe, just maybe, they might have saw some signs that it wasn't 100% healed the way they wanted it to be. Because for the amount of time that Nathan's sat out, you would think that would have been enough for him to be able to heal up and to be able to come back as close to full steam ahead as he possibly can. But that might not be the case. And again, just like I said about boardrooms and stuff that happens behind the scenes, none of us fully know. But Cleary will be out, and you have to think this helps a South Sydney club that is desperate for a victory believe they've got a little hope to spring an upset to start round 9. Now, I will tell you, Shedheads, the match that I am most excited about for this upcoming round that I cannot wait to watch is the derby between Cronulla and St. George, but it's got some extra venom. And you know me, I love a little extra venom. And that little extra venom will be, and I quote, the Flanagans return back to the Shire. That's right. Shane and Kyle Flanagan come riding back into that Dust Bowl of... All right, nah, that's an old Western. But yes, Shane and Kyle Flanagan coming back to take on their former club. And I love how Flano, and I don't call Kyle Flano. There's only one Flano, and that's Shane Flanagan. But I love how Shane Flanagan instantly stokes the fires on this rivalry by saying, last time I checked, Cronulla hasn't won any championships since I left. Boom! That just was the first explosion of dynamite to start everything off. But then Kyle Flanagan starts talking how the only thing he wants to do is beat his old mates since he played juniors there, and he would love to get a victory against his old friends. I think this match is going to be nonstop because no matter what anyone says, players sense when when a teammate or a coach go back to their old club, and they know the history of it. Coaches, team captains, players can't help but kind of put in their 2 cents worth during that lead-up week about what this victory means, how the team did them wrong, all that type of nonsense. But expect St. George to come out on fire, especially after the performance they had at Anzac round. And Flano was brilliant by switching all the talk as far away from the Roosters match for Anzac round to talking about Cronulla and the week to come. So if you can watch any match this week, Shedheads, that's the match for me you got to watch. We got some bad blood. We got some history. It's going to be a barn burner. Can't wait to see it. Well, before I took off, I went 4 for 8 for that last round. Started the first couple of games really bad, rallied late, broke even, so I guess everybody gets to keep their house. But let's see what we can do for some picks this week, because we started off Thursday with the Panthers at the Rabbitohs. And Shedheads, I'm going to say this. With Cleary being out, and with their backs against the wall, Ben Hornby in there, I think the Rabbitohs are going to put on a performance, and they're going to spring the upset of the round. I've got South Sydney beating the Penrith Panthers to start off round 9. Friday, Raiders versus the Sea Eagles. Ricky is dealing with a young hot Habs combination. He's got so many injuries with that club right now. And I just think going to Brookvale Oval is going to be too much. I think the Sea Eagles beat Canberra and continue the green machine. I don't want to say they're free fall because they just can't stay healthy, but again, keeps a little bit of misery going on in the nation's capital. Roosters versus the Broncos. It's always a great match when these two come together. A lot of people were thinking about the Spencer Leniu, situation, but Spencer Lenyu is still out, so him and Ezra will not meet up at all. But I think that the emotions will be high still in this match. I think that there will be a lot of hard hits, and I think some stuff could boil over for a little bit. But I still have, for some reason, the Roosters going up, getting the victory over the Brisbane Broncos up at Suncorp Stadium. Saturday, Tigers versus the Bulldogs. I will say this right now. I don't know why I'm making this pick. Heck, the Tigers can barely score, let alone take away tries from Api Curacao that should be called tries. But I do think for some reason the West Tigers, again, spring the upset over the Bulldogs and get the victory. Storm versus the Titans. I wish I could have seen this match up there. I will tell you, the Gold Coast Titans played a beautiful stadium. The design of it is really neat, keeping the sound inside. So I hope all the Titans fans show up in droves for this match, get behind their club. But I still have AJ Brimson and the Titans pulling the upset and getting their second victory of the season over the Storm. Dolphins versus the Cowboys. Both clubs are going to need a victory after this last round. The Cows coming home strong. The Dolphins losing a match I think they thought they should have won. But I have the Cows back in Townsville getting a victory, getting their season back going the direction they wanted to go. Sunday, Warriors versus the Knights. Okay, I know this starts at 11 o'clock on Saturday, but I'm still going to call it a Sunday match. This was the toughest match for me to pick, personally, because I think the Knights have a lot to prove, and I would not be surprised if the Knights get hot for this little period of the season, especially with Origin coming up soon. But I just think the Warriors have enough strike that they understand they've got to get back in the win column to get themselves straightened out, to get back into that top four like they need to be. So I'm going to go with the Warriors versus the Knights, even though I think it's going to be close and a really good game. And then finally, the match that I know we're all excited about, Dragons versus the Sharks. This is just going to be everything that we want in an NRL match. Hard-hitting, bad blood. But I think Team Flanagan comes into the Shire, springs the upset, and Shane Flanagan stands up in his press box and says, "That's right, you still haven't won a premiership without me." So I'm going with the Dragons over the Sharks. Now, my gun of the round, it was really tough because I went back and forth with this for about 10 or 15 minutes between Hollywood Sam Walker and Cameron Munster. And both of them, you wouldn't be wrong if you would have picked either one of the two. But because of his 10 for 10 performance on conversions, I went with Hollywood Walker. 1 try, 10 for 10 of conversions, 17 running meters, 1 line break assist, 2 try assists, 1 tackle break, 18 tackles made, and 370 kicking meters. But I think to me it was the intangibles with Sam Walker and how him being back on the field just made the Sydney Roosters look like a different club. Even without Victor Radley there and some of the major outs they had, they looked like they could have put up 70 points. So I went with Hollywood Walker, knowing the type of player that he is and knowing what he brought to that team and the strike he brought. So, Shedheads, it's been great being back with you guys. Enjoy the rounds, the footy this week. And like I said over Anzac round, don't take for granted the freedoms and liberties that we have, no matter if you live in America, if you live in Australia, if you live in New Zealand. Just remember that people sacrifice for us and be proud to be the best you can be and helping others when you get a chance. But until next week, Shedheads, this is your Shedadamus, Corey Jackson, signing out. Until next week, see ya!
And that was another fantastic episode of Outside the Sheds with Corey Jackson, talking all things NRL and all things sports. So please remember to smash the subscribe button and share this with your family and friends and show them what Australian sport is all about.